do you select a mentor? There's too many in Pakistan always available to give advice.
Oh God, yeah. That's a very good question. Actually, here's some advice for you, how you select a mentor. Ask them the most difficult questions up front. And second, figure out how responsive they are. And number three, tell them you won't offer them anything. Okay? Like, ultimately, honestly, I know I understand the spirit of why this question is asked, because there are advice you can give for free. Like, it's great. People, unsolicited, people will give that. And I've received that many in my career. And the ones who actually want to figure out, basically helping you, the ones who can provide more than advice are the best people to be with. I'll be honest with you, right? So I think that's, it's a very human question. You've sometimes got to go with your gut. Don't have too many of them. You'll get this, like I said, I've said this, and I'm going to be very open about this. It's an opinion I have. You can ignore everything I've said. That's totally fine by me, right? But you've asked a question, I've given the advice, and that's totally fine. The other thing is, don't have a mentor or a coach or an advisor where you don't listen to the advice. They've got to listen as much as you've got to listen, right? So there has to be, otherwise it doesn't really work in the long term. I have had one mantra, which is you have to work with people you genuinely like and would like to basically work with. Don't do it because of the name. It doesn't work in the longer term. There's no personal equity in relationship in that. Life is very short. So work with the people who are rooting for you and who want to be able to do
that. Great advice about getting advice. Maybe the last or second last, how important is it for an investor to have entrepreneurial experience? And then it's a statement, Pakistani VCs are startups themselves.
Pakistani VCs are startups themselves, 100% agree. Shout out to my friends, of which no shortage, of course, Misbah and Kulsoom, right. Raheel, Faisal Aftab, Ali Khwaja, and I hope, Fatma Gobi team, basically, like, there's no shortage of, they're all great. I will be honest. I've met all of them, and I think they're fantastic. The reality is a lot of VCs themselves are early in the journey. That's part of any industry, right? Just, they don't need to have entrepreneurial experience. That's not the job of an investor. Can they relate to it? Sure, that's fine. But I actually think that because they're entrepreneurs, they understand the challenges. They probably have more empathy in what business building takes than anything else. So I think being more aligned with them is kind of important. Do they have work to do? Fundraising, Pakistan being a difficult market to invest in. I totally understand that. Don't anyone who think I'm like sitting here in Bay Area, I'm like, oh yeah, you should just do all these things. Like, in the greater context, it's very hard to be able to build a company in Pakistan. But the good news is, alhamdulillah, we've got a good ecosystem, at least of VCs, who are doing their best to be able to channel investment in companies. We're trying to basically, the regulations, SVP or otherwise, could do a much better job in my viewpoint. I think that will happen over time. I think the infrastructure for startups needs to be done a lot better. I think the financial, I think a lot of the financial banks should be having definitively a much better program for startups. I honestly believe there should be, an SVB type model for startups in Pakistan. I mean, entrepreneurship in the DNA of the Pakistani race, and has been for many, many years. We've been able to having to figure out challenges that most generations do not. My father went through that. My grandfather went through that. My uncles and my aunties went through that. My own mother had to be an entrepreneur. So to answer the question more directly, you've got to be able to I've tried to equip you with the points that come in with most VCs when they look about investing in companies. It will help you to be able to have your conversations with investors with that context, be able to provide them with the information they need to make it easier for them to get comfortable investing. And if you don't have that, then you've got to get that. That's the job, right? So I don't think VCs have to be founders. I'm not brave enough to be a founder. Like, I'll admit it, right? I think it's not for everyone. It's hard. Like, I've worked in corporations. I've worked at an early stage as an early stage startup, as an early stage employee, you know, when it was less than 20 or 30 people. I've done that. And I know the founder's journey is really, really hard. And I get that. It's not for everyone. That's why, you know, number of startups fail. But that's okay. And the reason it's okay is eventually what happens is you get correction in the system about what's working, what isn't, what the market needs, and the right company comes along to be able to basically build that out. Look, Uber should have taken over the world, but Kareem didn't. Kareem had a different idea, right? So there've been no shortage of those examples, and I'm proud to say that this is why the journey is long and hard, and you've got to be able to basically go after it from that vantage point. So, you know, be respectful of people's experiences and see who the best partners are to work with you. It doesn't matter what their background is, VC.